firstly, not many people even know of John Bell, and then not many people even know of Bell's theorem. Whereas a lot of people know of Bohr, they know of the Copenhagen interpretation. Why do you think that is? Like, if we had to dissect this as a case study as well, at what point did this interpretation become more prevalent in the industry? So much so that people haven't even heard of John Bell, and that type of thinking has just been suppressed.
Well, it's not. I mean, you're right, but if to understand the suppression, you can go back before Bell. So you think here's some people have heard of: Albert Einstein, Erwin Schrödinger.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Schrödinger's equation is at the center of quantum theory. Einstein's paper in 1905 on the photoelectric effect was really the beginning of quantum theory, I would say, rather than Planck's earlier work. So these were people who were well known, were very intimately involved in the creation of quantum theory. Yeah. Both of them complained as loudly as they could about Bohr and Copenhagen, right? And rejected it and said it was nonsense and said it was incoherent and said you can't make sense of it. And they were kind of shunted aside. So you can say, well, all right, Bell was some unknown guy from Ireland who was working at CERN. Yeah. It's maybe, and it would, if not for a series of almost accidents, he could have published his paper and almost been, it just died. It was published in the first volume of a brand new physics journal that went out of business within a few years. That paper could have sat on dusty shelves and not been noticed by anybody. It was only by great luck, in a way, it got into the hands of Abner Shimoni, who appreciated it, and Shimoni's student was John Clauser, who was looking for an experiment to do. And I mean, there are various things that happened. They might not have happened. It's not clear. But before you ask why isn't it people haven't heard of Bell, first ask, how could they have sidelined Einstein so effectively? Albert Einstein, when he's complaining, spooky action at a distance, right? God plays dice. I mean, all these very loud complaints. Quantum theory is wrong. It's all nonsense. And how did they do it? They said, Einstein, he got old fuddy-duddy. Who cares about Einstein? Don't listen to him. It is a sociological fact that Bohr was certainly a much better organizer than Einstein. Einstein, in his later life, was working by himself. His only collaborators are Podolsky and Rosen in this paper in 1935. Schrödinger, when he was raising his complaints, working by himself. So the opposition to Copenhagen was scattered and was not acting as a organized corporate body. Bohr was good at organizing. And so he had, he got Heisenberg. They didn't really agree, but they nonetheless presented a kind of unified front. And this guy Rosenfeld, and they could be pretty ruthless in some ways in enforcing the Copenhagen orthodoxy. So I think that's the real story. And then Bell is just this guy who's not at the center of the theoretical community at all. And he's a very practical guy working at CERN. And he's just a good thinker. And he figures this out and publishes it. But he was nice enough. I think it was a friend of his who was starting this brand new physics journal, volume 1. And he said, oh, here's a paper I just wrote. Not even trying to get it published in the established central physics journals. Just a nice guy, right? And he had no means to enforce any of this. What happened was enough people ended up hearing about it and seeing the point to see this is very important. But they were kind of people on the fringes. Or from the beginning, there were people on the fringes who took this up, who understood it. I mean, I learned about a lot of this. I learned about this in two places. I learned about it in a 1979 Scientific American article by Bernard Despeignat, and then a book called Quantum Reality by Nick Herbert, which came out a little bit later. But these were not the big names in physics, right? These were
Yeah.
always people who were in a way on the fringe.